Surgeons don't believe in talent. They believe in hard work. Let me explain to you why that's important and how that relates to people like you. We've all heard people talk about how, oh, he has the hands of a surgeon. Yet there's a surgeon named Atul Gawande who's written a wonderful article called The Learning Curve. And he then eventually republished it as an article called The Education of a Knife. I love that title. And he talks about how no one, I don't care how talented they are, how gifted they were at birth, no one has enough talent to be able to have the right to take a knife and put it into another person's flesh. It takes a tremendous amount of arrogance, a tremendous amount of confidence to know that putting a knife into another person's flesh is the right thing to do. How do surgeons get to that point? They don't believe in talent. They believe in practice. They believe in preparation. You practice, 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 practice. And here's what Gawande says is that there's a dirty little secret involved in this. And that's this. No amount of practice on rats or cadavers or whatever else it is matches practicing on real live human beings. The only way to get to become a talented surgeon is to practice at surgery, to do surgery. And that means you learn from your mistakes. And your mistakes are mistakes you make on other human beings. There's no other way to learn. And he says it takes a tremendous amount of humility to be a surgeon, not just arrogance, because you recognize the only way that you got to where you are is by making mistakes on other human beings. He gives an example. He says there was I'm going to get this exact statistics wrong, but there was a particular kind of surgery that he would do that an acceptable amount of, mistakes would be that 15 out of 1,000 people would die from that procedure. If you did it without any mistakes, no problems, everything goes well, 15 out of 1,000 would die. And that's a 1.5%, and they would consider that acceptable. Well, some guy came up with a new way of doing surgery where only 10 out of 1,000 would die. Well, which is better? Of course, you would want to do the one where only 10 out of 1,000 dies. But here's what Gawande says is there's a problem. For the first 2 years as you're learning this surgery, 20 out of 1,000 will die. Now, which is better? Well, if you're going to be doing surgery for the next 20 years, of course it's better to learn the new way and have 2 years where a few extra people die, but then 18 years where those people don't die and you only get 10 out of 1,000. So of course it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do unless you happen to be one of those people that he's operating on in those first 2 years. And at no point does the surgeon sit down with you and say, I've got this new technique and you're going to be my guinea pig. What they say is, I've got this new technique and only 10 out of 1,000 are going to die. It's better. And they don't tell you, I'm still learning it. That's just not how surgeons work. Well, how does that apply to people who lead in God's name? Christian leaders often are learning things along the way. We're all learning things. And what's the only way for us to learn? The only way for us to learn is to make mistakes on other human beings. We can't learn leadership. We can't learn to lead in a vacuum. I don't care how much you read. As at some point you're going to have to leave whatever it is you're reading and go out there and deal with other human beings. And the only way to learn is from your mistakes. And so this should create a tremendous amount of humility and a tremendous desire to learn from your mistakes, because you didn't actually pay the price for your learning. Somebody else paid the price for your learning. And that puts an enormous impetus on you to actually learn from that mistake. In the medical world, what they have are these mortality and morbidity seminars where I think it's like every Wednesday at 5 o'clock or something like that at a hospital, all the surgeons meet. And they all get together and they go over all the surgeries where somebody died that week. And they look and see, did somebody make a mistake here? Now, nobody wants, especially in this day and age of lawsuits, to have their mistakes dragged out in front of everybody. But they know that learning comes at such a high price that it's too high a price for only one person to learn from it. All the doctors in the hospital needed to learn from it. All the surgeons in the hospital needed to learn from it. And so it became part of your ethics that you go through and you talk about the things that you did well and you did poorly, and that's what everybody learns from. Well, we do the same thing as Christian leaders. We need to be able to find groups of people. We need to find either some kind of a Bible study group, some kind of prayer group, some kind of reflection group, some kind of staff group, something where you are reflecting a community with others about what you're doing well and what you're doing poorly. Because A, you need to learn from your own mistakes, but those mistakes come at such a high price, others should learn from them too. We don't believe anyone is talented enough to simply say, I can speak about another person's soul. That only comes from training, from experience, and from learning. Nobody is talented enough to be a surgeon. Surgeons don't believe in talent. They only believe in practice.